Kids, we're going to be studying our first empire. We looked at smaller city-states in Sumer and Mesopotamia. Now we're jumping into Africa to go to Egypt. We're going to look at the Nile River. We're going to look at the pyramids, the Egyptian gods, all sorts of stuff that deal with Egypt and the Egyptian Empire. One of the largest and longest reigning empires we're going to study. So get ready to go to Egypt. Cut.
Ancient Egypt, Part 1. When we mention Egypt, three images come to mind: the pyramids, the desert, and that long and impressive river called the Nile. Sound familiar? But let us start by talking about that vast sea of sand known as the Sahara Desert. This place in the north of Africa is not an appealing place to live. However, thousands of years ago, there were abundant rains in the heart of Africa. Little by little, a flow of water was created, and gradually it started to grow. These waters became one of the largest rivers in the world, the Nile. Many people have settled near this river. But living by the Nile has its ups and downs. In the wet season, the Nile grows so much that all lands around it are flooded. But when the water retreats, the land is ideal for farming, since the riverbed has fertilized the surrounding soil. Thousands of years ago, people that had been nomads started building their homes around the Nile. This is how ancient Egypt was born. The Egyptians learned how to grow crops on rich and fertile land. The food was plentiful. This meant that instead of traveling in search of food, the Egyptian people could stay in one place, farming all the food they needed.
You had to search for food all the time, Mommy?
Yes, but not anymore, honey. The Egyptians were very clever in using the flooding of the Nile to their benefit. They invented an irrigation system, which let them grow even more crops. Jobs such as surveyor were invented. Like modern-day engineers, surveyors measured lands and planned how to build the irrigation canals and many other things. The surveyors started to use mathematical calculations to help them plan. Later, this understanding of math would help the Egyptians build great works. The Nile brought the Egyptians another amazing benefit: trade. The crops, food, and other goods the Egyptians produced were put on boats and sold up and down the Nile. Soon, the river became a large highway where goods and peoples traveled, trading with each other, which made the Egyptians quite wealthy. With the abundance of wealth, the plentiful food, and the mobility to trade with other peoples, the great Egyptian civilization started to grow, all thanks to the River Nile.
3,000 years of history.
Over 5,000 years ago, around 3500 BC, the development of trade and agriculture helped some villages on the banks of the Nile become very wealthy and powerful, and important cities started to grow along the river. Around 3000 BC, King Menes created a capital in Memphis, which unified the kingdoms of Upper and Lower Egypt. The symbol for Upper Egypt was a white crown, and for Lower Egypt, a red crown. Thus, the double crown of the pharaohs was created. That was the beginning of a great empire that would last for thousands and thousands of years. Ancient Egypt was in a great location. On one side, the huge desert protected them from attacks from the south. And on the other side, the River Nile provided food, trade, and contact with other villages and peoples. Maintaining unity was difficult for the Egyptian rulers, since they had many enemies that wanted to invade them and strip them of their wealth.
So the Egyptians were able to build this empire basically because the Nile River provided so much nutrients for them. It allowed them to trade. It almost acted like a highway. They had protection from the desert on one side. They were able to become wealthy and then build their society into the empire that it was. The Egyptian Empire, one of the strongest empires ever made, and they made so many different inventions that we're going to go over. So that's an intro to Egypt. We'll see you soon, Mr. D.